Hi everyone, welcome to CBSE Class 10 Political Science Chapter 1 Power Sharing. Before entering into our chapter, let me ask you one thing, that is, how will you cut a cake? Most of us will cut as equal part, isn't it? So equal sharing is very important in our life. Like that, power sharing is very important in a democratic country. Our first chapter civics is power sharing, and which means the distribution of powers among different organs or different levels of government. So what is power sharing? Power sharing is a technique which means the distribution of power among different organs or different levels of government. Do you know which are the organs of government? That is legislative, executive and judiciary. And which are all the levels of government? Center, state and local level. And our chapter is starting with the case studies of two countries in the world, Belgium and Sri Lanka. How these democratic countries handle their power sharing issues. Let us see the case of Belgium. Belgium is a smaller country in Europe, and Belgium has four borders: the Netherlands, France, Germany and Luxembourg. And it has a population of little over 1 crore, and it is a half of the population of Haryana. The ethnic composition in this Belgium was very complex. And before that, you want to know what is ethnicity. Ethnic, that means a social division based on shared culture. An ethnic group or ethnicity is a grouping of people who identify with each other on the basis of shared attributes that distinguish them from other groups, such as common set of traditions, language, history, culture, religion, etc. Now let us discuss what were the ethnic problems in the country Belgium. Of the country's total population, 59% lives in the Flemish region and speaks Dutch language. That is, 59% lives in the Flemish region and they speak Dutch language. Another 40% of people live in the Wallonia region and they speak French. Remaining 1% of the Belgians speak German. And in the capital city Brussels, 80% people speak French while 20% are Dutch speaking. All over the world, the French speaking people were the minority group and they were relatively rich and powerful. This was resented by the Dutch speaking community who got the benefit of economic development and education much later. This led to tensions between the Dutch speaking and French speaking communities during the 1950s and 1960s. As we have noted earlier, in the capital city Brussels, 80% of people speak French while 20% are Dutch speaking. The tension between the two communities was more acute in Brussels. Brussels presented a special problem. The Dutch speaking people constituted a majority in the country but a minority in the capital. Let us move on to another country, that is Sri Lanka. We know that Sri Lanka is an island nation and just a few kilometers of the southern coast of Tamil Nadu. And it has about 2 crore people, about the same as Haryana. Like other nations in the South Asian region, Sri Lanka has a diverse population. Let us see what is the ethnic problem existing in this country. The major social groups are Sinhala speakers and the Tamil speakers. Sinhala speakers, 74% of people speaking Sinhala language and 80% of people speaking Tamil language. And in these Tamil groups, there are two subgroups, Tamil natives of the country, and they were called Sri Lankan Tamils. The rest, whose forefathers came from India as plantation workers during colonial period, are called Indian Tamils. And we know that from the map, Sri Lankan Tamils are concentrated in the north and east of the country. Most of the Sinhala speaking people are Buddhist, while most of the Tamils are Hindus or Muslims. There are about 7% Christians who are both Tamil and Sinhala, remaining 1% as Muslims. Let us see what happened in both these countries. And regarding Sri Lanka emerged as an independent country in 1948. The leaders of the Sinhala community sought to secure dominance over government by virtue of their majority. So, what were the majoritarian measures accepted by the Sri Lankan people? In 1956, an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language, thus disregarding Tamil. So, in 1956, an act was passed to recognize Sinhala as the only official language. The second one, the governments followed preferential policies that favored Sinhala applicants for university positions and government jobs. That's the second point. And the third one, a new constitution stipulated that the state shall protect and foster Buddhism. So these were the majoritarian measures accepted by the Sinhalas, or adopted a series of majoritarian measures to establish Sinhala supremacy. We should know the word majoritarianism, a belief that the majority community should be able to rule a country in whichever way it wants, by disregarding the wishes and needs of the minority. So there is no political right for the minority groups. So all these government measures coming one after the other gradually increase the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. They felt that none of the major political parties led by the Buddhist Sinhala leaders was sensitive to their language and culture. They felt alienated, and they felt that the constitution and government policies denied them equal political rights, discriminated against them in getting jobs and other opportunities, and ignored their interest. So as a result, the relations between the Sinhala and Tamils communities strained over time. And what were the reaction of Sri Lankan Tamils regarding this problem? The Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties and struggles for the recognition of Tamil as an official language, for regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. So they demanded Tamil as an official language, and they want regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. But their demand for more autonomy to provinces populated by the Tamils was repeatedly denied. By the 1980s, several political organizations were formed demanding an independent Tamil state in northern and eastern parts of Sri Lanka. The distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflict. It soon turned into a civil war. So what do you mean by civil war? Civil war means a violent conflict between opposing groups within a country that becomes so intense that it appears like a war. So there is a conflict between the opposing groups in the same country. So what were the after effects of the civil war? As a result, 1,000 people of both the communities have been killed. Many families were forced to leave the country as refugees, and many more lost their livelihoods. Sri Lanka's excellent record of economic development, education, and health, all this has caused a terrible setback to the social, cultural, and economic life of the country, and that was ended in 2009. So, thus created a disunity among the people in Sri Lanka. And how Belgium solved this problem? The Belgian leaders took a different path. They recognized the existence of regional differences and cultural diversities. Between 1970 and 1993, they amended the constitution 4 times so as to work out an arrangement that would enable everyone to live together within the same country. The arrangement they worked out is different from any other country and is very innovative. And what are all the elements of the Belgian model of constitution? We are going to study the elements of the Belgian model constitution. The constitution prescribes that number of Dutch and French speaking ministers shall be equal in the central government. Some special laws require to support of majority of members from each linguistic groups, and no single community can make decisions unilaterally. The second point, many powers of the central government have been given to state governments of the 2 regions of the country. The state governments are not subordinate to the central government. Brussels has a separate government in which both the communities have equal representation. The French-speaking people accepted equal representation in Brussels because the Dutch-speaking community has accepted equal representation in the central government. And the fourth point, apart from these central and state governments, there is a third kind of government, that is community government, and is elected by the people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French, and German speaking, no matter where they live. The government has the power regarding cultural, educational, and language related issues. So, what was the result of this Belgian model constitution? The country united respecting the feelings of different communities and regions. Now, let us see the similarities and differences of Belgium and Sri Lanka. And these both countries are democratic countries, but power sharing arrangement is different. Both are democratic countries, but power sharing arrangement is different. In Belgium, leaders have realized that unity of the country is possible only by respecting the feelings and interests of different communities and regions. And what was the drawback in the system followed by Sri Lanka? Dominance of majority community, that is Sinhalese, by refusing to share power with Tamils, resulting in disunity. From this, we understand that a majority community wants to force its dominance over others and refuses to share power. It can undermine the unity of the country.